Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 11. Today we will present a material about the main prohibition in Islamic economy. Before we start our presentation, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Kartika Sandra Dewi.
And my name is Maisa Musalati.
So, let's begin.
Firstly, I will explain the main content of the material that I will explain later. There are 5 main points of the content. First, prohibition of measure in transactions. Second, prohibition of horror or uncertainty in transactions. And third, prohibition of usury or interest in transactions. And fourth, other forms of prohibited transactions. And the last but not least, fifth, implications of prohibition of riba, measure, and horror on economic activities. Now, let's begin with the first content, prohibition of measure in transactions. To understand this material, I will explain the definition of measure or gambling. In religious terminology, gambling is defined as a transaction made by two parties for the ownership of an object or service that benefits one party and harms the other party by linking the transaction to a certain action or event. Next, there is legal basis for the prohibition of measure. In the Quran, the word measure and its derivatives appear 44 times, while the word measure itself is explicitly mentioned only in 3 verses in Quran Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 219, and in Quran Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 19 and 91. Imam Ash-Shabuni interprets measure in Al-Ma'idah, verse 90, as any game that results in profit for one party and loss for another, classifying it as prohibited gambling. This suggests that gambling is initially understood as games involving betting, winning or losing, and outcomes based on chance or fate. However, a broader interpretation extends the concept of gambling to include any activity involving risk, where participants face potential profit or loss through an element of wagering to gain wealth. Then, there is measure offenders. The majority of scholars agree that gambling offenders are subject to ta'zir, which is a punishment to prevent the offender from repeating his crime. Ta'zir means rejecting evil, strengthening, honoring, and teaching a lesson. Ta'zir punishment has no specific limit and is entirely left to the judge. This punishment applies to all reasonable people, regardless of age, gender, or religion. According to the Zahiriyah scholars, children, insane people, and drunk people who lose their minds are not subject to hudud and qiyas, but can still be subject to ta'zir punishment. There are 2 elements of measure, the general elements and the specific elements. In the general elements, there are some sub-elements. First, the existence of a sentence from the Quran that prohibits and treats the act, formal elements. Second, the existence of the behavior that constitutes the jarimah, either in the form of actual action or inaction. Third, the perpetrator is mukallaf. And then, there are also sub-elements in the specific elements. First, there must be 2 parties, each consisting of 1 or more people who bet. The winner, the right guesser, or the owner of the matching number will be paid by the loser according to a certain agreement and formula. Second, winning or losing is associated with the outcome of an event that is beyond the control and prior knowledge of the bettors. Next, there are 4 measure in conventional financial transactions. First, measure in conventional insurance. Muhammad Fadli Yusuf explains that the element of measure in conventional insurance, especially life insurance, arises because of gharar. Second, measure in conventional capital markets. Measure often occurs in the secondary market because prices are determined by market mechanisms, not company performance. Third, measure on forex transactions or buying and selling forex transactions are categorized as maisir if there is no actual buying and selling of forex. Fourth, maisir in gold exchange transactions. Similar to forex, gold exchange transactions can also contain maisir if the gold being traded is artificial and the fund owner never receives the physical gold. Now, I will explain the contents of the second material, namely prohibition of horror in transactions. Let's begin with the definition. Etymologically, the word horror means something that is not known to be certain whether it's right or wrong, such as speculation, risk, danger, and uncertainty. According to other linguists, a horror trade is a trade that on the surface tantalizes the buyer while the contents are unclear. There is legal basis for the prohibition of horror. There are several traditions that Islamic law uses as a reference in providing an understanding of the meaning and scope of horror. Among them is the tradition narrated by Muslim from Abu Hurairah that the Prophet Muhammad forbid us from doing by al-hashad and buying and selling horror. There are two types of horror. First, horror in the sikhat akad or transaction sentence, and the second, horror in the object of the transaction. Horror in the sikhat akad or transaction sentence. First, two deals in one transaction. Ba'itani fi ba'iyah is one agreement with two transactions, either with the fulfillment of one of the two transactions or in terms of the price. Second, sell and purchase with loss of down payment. Ba'i urban or urbun is when someone buys a commodity and a portion of the payment is given to the seller, down payment. Third, jahiliyah sell and purchase with stones, touching, and throwing. Ba'i al-Hasya, or buying and selling with stones, is a business transaction in which the seller and buyer agree on the sale and purchase of a commodity at a certain price with a hasya, or small stone, made by one party to the other party, which is used as a guideline for the transaction to take place, or also by making a small stone on the commodity and also the fall of a stone on any party that requires the person to make a transaction. Fourth, hanging sale and purchase. Bai al-mu'alak is a sale and purchase transaction where the continuity depends on another transaction, which is required. Fifth, sale and purchase of al-mudaf. Bai al-mudaf is an agreement to carry out a sale and purchase transaction for a future time. Next, horror in the object of the transaction, which includes first, uncertainty in the kind of transaction object. Second, uncertainty in the type of transaction object. Third, uncertainty in the nature of the transaction object. Fourth, ignorance in the size of the transaction object. Fifth, ignorance in the substance of the transaction object. Sixth, ignorance in the time of the contract. Seventh, inability to deliver the commodity. Eighth, making a contract for something that is not real. And last but not least, lack of right to see the object of transaction. There are four forms and types of horror in transactions. First, agent system. Agent system is a sale that is prohibited in Islamic law, whether the agent system is only for one harvest or for many years. Second, buying animal fetuses. Third, selling mulamasah and munabazah. Mulamasah is a sale that takes place only by touching the goods without looking at them. And munabazah is a sale in which one party throws an item to the other as a sign of agreement without being clear about the condition of the item. And the last, fourth, selling goods that do not yet belong to them. There are two horror in conventional financial transactions. First, horror aspects of conventional insurance. Error occurs in conventional insurance because there is no time limit for premium payments based on the age of the insured, while we agree that a person's age is in the hands of the Almighty. Second, error in stock market transactions. Shafi Antonio said that the element of speculation in the stock exchange is very high because of the many elements that affect the unit price. The element of speculation must be seen whether it includes ghurur hafi or ghurur fahish, because almost all transactions contain elements of ghurur. Only what is prohibited is clear ghurur, which can cause legal uncertainty in terms of price.
Definition of usury. Usury is an unauthorized addition to the principal such as interest on debt or excess in buying and selling. Scholars agree that usury is the addition to a loan because of the time factor. Usury is forbidden because it causes fraud, injustice, and unfairness. MUI defines usury as additional without reward due to delay in payment. Riba nasi'ah. Explanation about the type usury. First, riba nasi'ah is the addition to a debt due to delayed payment is synonymous with interest and on loan is mentioned in the Quran, violate justice and can occur in barter if there is excess value and delay. And the second is an addition if the exchange of unequal goods of the same kind causing uncertainty and injustice. The first school of thought agree that usury fatal if forbidden, and the prophet warned that it can lead to usury nasi'ah. Normative usury is forbidden in the Quran, Sunnah, and Couse. The prohibition is not immediate but gradual or four stage. The first stage is changing the perception that usury is not a form of takarub to Allah, and the second stage giving a real example by mentioning the ugliness of usury committed by the Jews. And the third stage is explaining the character of usury as a multiplied addition, and the fourth stage is affirming the law that all forms of addition to a loan are haram. Secular of usury. The scholars agree that usury is haram and a major sin. They divided the usury nasi'ah and usury fadl. Usury aims to be abolished to uphold economic justice. Bank interest is declared usury and haram by figures such as Yusuf al-Qaradawi, Wahbah al-Zuhaili, MUI, and Ijtima Ulama 23. Other prohibition from of transaction. In muamalah fiqh, transactions are prohibited if they contain drahar, haram object, or invalid condition. Example, buying and selling unclean goods, animal sperm, drahar transaction, two price in one contract, fraud, manipulation, false bidding, hoarding, hiding defect, extreme price inequality, and buying and selling goods that do not yet exist. Application of prohibition of riba, mashir, and grahar on economic activity. Usury is prohibited because it causes investment inequality, unfair distribution of wealth, exploitation of the poor, economy instability, and crisis due to fractional reserve. The solution is to implement a fair and interest-free Islamic economic system. Conclusion. Islamic economy prohibition riba, interest, maisir, gambling, and grahar uncertainty to ensure fairness, transparency, and balance. Maisir involves harmful speculation. Grahar lead to uncertainty and fraud, and riba cause inequality and exploitation. These elements appear in finance, drug insurance, capital market, forex, and interest system. Islamic economy promote justice, partnership, and social responsibility over speculation and uncertainty.
That's all our presentation today. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, you can write on comment section. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.